What if a so-called democracy-building program was really a political weapon? What if student protests, civil society movements, and media narratives were not grassroots, but manufactured, engineered thousands of miles away? This isn't fiction. It happened in Bangladesh, and the documents now prove it. This is how America quietly launched a regime change operation in Dhaka, using students and NGOs as tools of geopolitical warfare. In early 2019, a covert initiative was launched in Bangladesh, the PAIRS program, promoting accountability, inclusivity, and resiliency support. Funded by USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, NED, and executed by the International Republican Institute, IRI. This wasn't just about development. It was regime change. Internal documents reveal the true goal: undermine Sheikh Hasina, counter Indian influence in Bangladesh, reshape Dhaka's foreign policy in America's favor. The program ran for 22 months, ending in January 2021, but the seeds had been sown. Key players were recruited not from government, but from universities. Students like Nahid Islam and Nusrat Tabassum, linked to US and European-funded initiatives, helped ignite student movements in Dhaka University. These weren't random outbursts. They were carefully cultivated. US-backed groups embedded in education systems, just like they've done in Serbia, Ukraine, and Hong Kong, to train the next generation of protest leaders. The US operation used a two-faced approach. On one side, violent street protests, aided by extremist groups like Jamaat-e-Islami II. On the other, peaceful, civil society voices, funded by US grants to act as the moderates together. They formed a political pincer move, destabilized the streets, shaped global media narratives, lead internal dissent. This is the same blueprint used in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Latin America. Even The Guardian reported how similar tactics were used to influence elections across post-Soviet states, all under the banner of democracy. What truly rattled Washington? India's growing influence in Bangladesh. The geopolitical documents tied to PAIRS made it clear. The Awami League's closeness with New Delhi was problematic. Bangladesh's strategic alignment with India had to be countered. The US viewed Sheikh Hasina as too pro-India, and that made her a liability. They offered her a choice: give us access to one of your ports, or step down. She said no. Soon after, protests surged. A new US-friendly candidate emerged. The regime change clock had started ticking. The National Endowment for Democracy, NED, is at the center of America's soft regime change machinery. Once praised for promoting democracy, it is now exposed as a tool for political interference, a funding source for foreign opposition parties, and a soft power version of the CIA. Even US Congressman Ron Paul condemned it for misusing taxpayer money to buy foreign governments. Congressman Barney Frank tried to cut its funding, calling it political manipulation in disguise. The New York Times exposed NED's role in destabilizing Haiti's elected government. New York Review of Books revealed its ties with CIA and USAID in funding insurgents in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Mongolia, and Taiwan. NED has openly backed opposition parties.
He's Middle East Forum Action Director Benjamin Baird, and he joins me now. Benjamin, you just heard that from Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Musk pointed out that federal government dollars going to terrorists. You did the multi-year study. Please explain to me how USAID is funding terrorists.
But it's also dangerous, extremely dangerous. You got it right, $164 million to radical groups and $122 million to terror-linked organizations. That's what we found in a review of USAID. That
Bangladesh is not the exception, it's the rule. In Taiwan, NED worked with the Democratic Progressive Party, awarding President Tsai Ing-wen a Democracy Service Medal, heightening tensions with China. In Xinjiang, the World Uyghur Congress, NED-funded, is facing internal collapse over leadership and sexual harassment scandals. And yet, the money keeps flowing. Behind the mask of civil rights and elections lies a simple truth. If a government is pro-China, pro-India, or pro-independence, they are targeted. If they refuse US demands, they are replaced. With Bangladesh shaken and Syria slowly reintegrated, America's eyes have now turned to Iran. Recent developments show a familiar pattern emerging. The US has funneled funds into Pakistan, not for development, but for strategic pressure. Pakistan's role: agitate Iran from the east, a front they've played before on the west. Israel and a surprisingly re-engaged Syria apply pressure from the other side, even more shocking. The same America that once placed a $10 billion bounty on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is now shaking hands with him. All for one purpose: encircle Iran and fracture its internal stability. This multi-directional squeeze play is classic CIA strategy: destabilize, isolate, then incite an internal collapse. The tools are already in motion. Social media psyop sanctions hitting the economy, activation of protest networks inside Iran. Iran's regime change isn't a question of if, but when. Bangladesh, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, even allies like India. If your government doesn't agree to Washington's terms, you're on the list. This is not democracy building. This is geopolitical engineering. And as we've seen in Bangladesh, the method is clean, quiet, and deadly effective. So as the narrative around Iran begins to shift, ask yourself, who's funding the protests? Who benefits from instability? And who's pulling the strings? Because in this game, freedom is the slogan, but control is the goal. This is Vocab Tales. Like, share, and subscribe for content they don't want you to hear.